what are those other sides of you musically?
Yeah, it takes a lot of patience, but I have a plan.
Okay, good.
So, I mean, each genre to me kind of represents, and it doesn't necessarily mean genre of music, but a genre of art, you know, like an artistic medium. I like to brand myself now more I've always been a storyteller, whether that is music and singing jazz or writing. You know, I write screenplays. I'm working on one of my films right now. And anything. I mean, if you can do it, don't limit yourself. If you're good at something, don't limit yourself. Don't waste that talent. But figure out a way you can do it so it doesn't come across as like disjunct and unfocused, you know. But speaking about musical genres, each genre kind of represented, for example, jazz represents quite literally my family, my roots, my blood. It is grounding, it's stable. And while I experience and explore different genres within the jazz realm, like 20s or more like modern styles, a little bit of funk and fusion in there, bebop, I still like to keep it within the confines of what I know to be jazz. And like, I've got to have swing in there. Swing is a thing. But when it comes to the other genres, that's like the passionate affair. You know, these genres represent different relationships, and the relationships with people versus relationships with the music, it's the same parallel. So rock and roll and opera are my, you know, passionate affairs, the relationships I've had with men or women, like, you know, just romantic. And it's up and down, it's left and right. And sometimes you need time away for like a couple years and then come back and it's strong as ever. Whereas jazz is the constant for me. I know these are more like abstract rather than like nitty gritty factual descriptions, but when I started, after the monk competition, I kind of knew that the path was placed before me. I was like, okay, I'm going to do be known as a jazz singer. That's what I'm going to be most known as. Also, one is for my parents' legacy. Two, it's for my own sanity. Because I actually, in college, I wasn't really singing jazz for a couple of years because my dad got sick, and I was just kind of angry about life. And so rock and roll was that outlet. Jazz was not an outlet for my anger. I didn't want it to be. Although there are places, designated times for that, and tunes, but I think if that's a healthy thing, if like some people actually need to put it all in one sound and that's their sound, and that's cool. I could never do that. Just personally, it's a personal choice. So I have to have like, it's different characters, you know? And I foresee that, you know, my ideal situation would be go on the road. You know how Esperanza kind of has that alter ego thing?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I see, you know, like do a jazz record, tour it, and then do Vera Icon, which is the rock musical, do that off Broadway for a few months, and then go back and do a jazz record. And then it's always, I think I'm going to just alternate. That's kind of where I see this all going. And that way I don't have to force it upon my audience. I say, you know, this is here if you dig it, but I'm going to do this, and then get people who aren't exposed to jazz. If they like Vera Icon, they say, well, check out this. And that's really my big hope, is to like connect all these different audiences, the film, rock and roll, Broadway, jazz. But, you know, they're still separate and they're respectable, you know.
Well, I think in today's world, one of the best things about living in the modern day is that you don't have to choose. You can equally create containers for all of those things and have audiences that reside in their individual spaces for those things. Yeah, there's always going to be bleed over. Someone checks you out through films like, oh man, she sings what? And goes down that rabbit hole, or even stylistically. But again, going back to false choices, you can be every one of those things. And I mean, we can even look at the past. There were artists that were so many things. Like, they never chose. They just did all. Yeah. I think Herbie is like bar none my, like, whenever I said, well, how would Herbie do it? Then like if we start from that as a baseline, That helps. How would is Herbie humble? Yeah. Okay. Let's kind of start there.
And I tour with Chris, with Bodie, and on his shows, he's doing bebop in 1 second, and then the next second he's doing like Nessun Dorma from, Turandot, some opera. He has an opera singer, and then the next thing he's doing, let's get together. What's the song? Let's stay together.
Yeah. Al Green. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're doing like funk and R&B, and then it's just constantly changing. And he's got a violinist who plays some crazy concerto stuff, and then she goes into Kashmir by Led Zeppelin. I'm like, this is the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Like each genre is genre specific, but it's all part of who Chris is, and it works. And it's a little harder to do as a vocalist, I think, because people really people connect more with vocalists because they're singing lyrics, but I think that because of that, people project what they want the vocalist to be sometimes. And we have to constantly, and I mean, we all do it, I do it. We have to remind ourselves not to do that. And also to allow an artist to evolve, because art is meant to evolve. And the artist is meant to evolve. So if their look changes, if their style changes from record to record, well, if you don't like it this time, next time maybe you might, because it's going to change.
Or stick with the old record you have of them. Like, you don't have, it's there.